Alright, here we are back at the shirt project. Today we're working on buttonholes. We've already done one. We have one more to go. It's going to be right here. And also, we're going to be doing buttons. Here's one that I did yesterday. And then we have to make one more. This is called a thread button. And I'll talk more about that in a minute. So, in order to get started... Oh, I wanted to tell you. Grab a scrap of your fabric. Fold it in half. Sew all the way around it. And do a practice buttonhole. Even if you're good at doing buttonholes, you'll get the feel of the fabric you're working on at the moment. And if you're not proficient at buttonholes, it gives you a chance to practice them. We did a project last winter, a jacket, and golly, I'll bet I did 20 practice buttonholes before I got the hang of it. Okay, so that's that. Now, this is the collar, and it turned out pretty good. Like I said, I've got the one buttonhole here. It'll take one more, which will be right in here. Now, they do make buttonhole chisels to make this opening. I just use a regular woodworking chisel when I do it, but half the time I just take the scissors and open up a little slit like that. And then I just extend the slit to where I want to go. Okay, that's pretty good. And then our button is going to go in like that, but we're going to do buttonhole stitches all the way around. So what I do is you take a little bit more than an arm's length of the same thread that I'm using on the shirt. With shirts and shifts, you're using relatively lightweight fabric, so you can use the thread that you're using to make the garment out of. This particular shirt seems to be about a medium weight linen, so I've been putting it together with 50 weight thread, and this 50 weight thread is going really well for buttonholes. Now, I learned from a tailor that when you start a buttonhole, you don't need to put a knot on the end of the thread. Just come in, this is your slit, just come in from the field like that. We'll cut it off later. Come in like that, bring your thread, your needle and thread through, and leave about 1.5 inches or so of a tail, like that, 1.5 inches or so. And then go back in the slit and take your needle. If you haven't done buttonholes, this might be new to you. Take your needle and find the very beginning of the slit. Right there is where you want to go through. And in this case, I don't know how to tell you, measurement-wise, it might be 1/8 of an inch, maybe 3/16 of an inch, but I'm going, if you can just kind of see, you're going to develop this distance in your mind from your buttonhole practice session. It'll tell you about that distance that you need to go. You don't want it too wide. This gap here, you don't want that to be too wide because it'll look clumsy. Okay, let's proceed then. We'll pull that needle through. Like that. Okay, now we're going to put the needle in right there again, and we're going to take your thread, the tail of your thread, and wrap it around the needle once. Pull the needle through. I usually park the needle and then just pull it through like this. And that is your stitch, but you're going to pull it in nice and snug. Now, I do want to say one thing about doing buttonholes, and that is, it's a very short distance. You're not going to need a whole lot of stitches, as opposed to doing a long hem. So really take your time with these and be very critical of your stitches. Now, I'm going to put the second one in now, and I'm looking for where the needle appears through the fabric. And have it fixed in your mind what that distance should be. And be very, very critical right to the very thread, the very warp thread, how you want that to come out. And you're going to have just maybe a fingernail's width of distance between the stitches. So we'll pull that through. Whoops, I forgot to do the turnaround. I'll show you that in a second. I was supposed to wrap the thread around the needle. I'll show it to you again. Okay, we'll do a third one here. And this time I'll do it the right way. Okay, be critical of where that needle comes out. And then you take that thread, wrap it around the needle once. Pull the needle through. Park the needle and just go right down with the thread and pull it out how you want it to be. Right there. That's looking pretty good. I'll do one more. That's good. Wrap the thread around the needle. Pull the needle through. Park the needle. Pull on the thread. Make sure it's snugging up just right. There we go. Okay, I'm going to turn the camera off now so I don't hold you up. And I'm going to go ahead and finish this row. And we'll resume with the camera work when we get to the end. And we'll show you what happens at the end. Okay, here we go. All right, we've reached the end of that row of stitches. I think they turned out fairly well. Now, I want to show you what you do at the very end when you get to the end of the row. Most importantly is you want to put what they call a bar tack in there, which is just a series of threads going around to strengthen where this fabric has been cut open. So I'll show you that right now, but we're going to make a decorative bar tack, much like they did in the 18th century. So we entered the fabric a little bit wider than what the next row will be. We're going to enter right about here, enter the fabric, go underneath past that first row, and we're going to find our exit point. I think, don't want to get too wide, too far afield. I don't want to fumble around too much, but I think right there is good. So that's where we're coming out. Pull the needle on through, needle and thread. We're going to pull the thread through, and we're going to make 3 laps of a bar tack. That was number 1. This is number 2. Now, these decorative buttonhole bar tacks, I'm not that good at doing, but yeah, we do okay. And this is number 3. Number 3. So, what I do is I go back and I go in that hole again, pull the needle through the other side, like that. That's where I ended. So there's our bar tack. I went through 3 times, actually maybe 4 times, because I made a mistake. Off camera, I realized that I came out the wrong side. So I passed the needle back through and came out here where I'm supposed to come out. Now what you do here is to make this like an 18th century buttonhole bar tack, you want to go in and use a series of buttonhole stitches down along the length of this bar tack. So I've inserted the needle, not through the fabric so much, but underneath all of the threads of the bar tack. So I've inserted the needle, and just like all of the other buttonhole stitches, I put the thread around the needle and I pull the thread through. You want to make sure you don't have any tangles because they will mess you up. Like that. There you go. So there's the first one. I'm going to do a series of these. It might take 7 or 8 of them. Here's the second one. I'm not going to hold you up for the entire length. I'm going to pull this out. Oh, my thumb is on the stitch. And I have found that when you pull that thread through, having your thumb over the thread right there helps to keep it from tangling. So that's why I did that. So there's the second one. I'm going to turn the camera off now and finish that, and then we'll pick it up again in a second. Just have one more of these stitches to do on this bar tack. And then I'll show you how we get going in the other way. Did I forget to put that around the needle again? If you do that, if you forget to wrap the thread around the needle, just find the loop, the big loop, and put it through the loop. I've been doing that a lot on this buttonhole for some reason. Okay, so there's the last of those. And Danielle reminded me off camera that these are a series of knots. They're not only are they decorative, but they help to protect that bar tack. So what we're going to do at this point is put the needle back through at that last stitch. We're going to come through, pass the thread through, and then if the camera can keep up with me, I'm going to turn the whole project around. So we brought the thread and needle from underneath, and now I'm going to go back in the other direction on the other side of the buttonhole, doing the same thing I did on the first side. Pull that through, stick the needle in and bring it down, find the end of the buttonhole opening, stick the needle through. Remember to put the thread around the needle and pull it through. And I like to put my thumb over the stitch when I pull the needle through because it helps to prevent tangles and snags. So there we are. Another thing I wanted to point out was, see that little tiny loop just before you finish putting the thread through? I like to just give that a tug, like right there. Look how much came out. If I hadn't done that, it might have been a mess. Let's just leave it at that. So pull that through, and then we're going to head down in the other direction and finish it up. Right. So just about done. I went ahead and finished this row of stitches, and since you saw me do the other bar tack, I did this one. I just have a couple more stitches to do, maybe just one more. We'll do that one right now, and I'll show you how you finish the buttonhole. Okay, so there's, pull that through. And that's pretty much it. It's not the best buttonhole I've ever done, but it's not the worst either. You know, every buttonhole that you do will be different. Some you'll like more than others. But the bottom line is that you're doing it by hand. And when you do things by hand, everything won't be the same. So I inserted the needle and I pulled it out the back side. I'll show you now how to terminate this thing. So I'm on the back side of the garment now, and what I do, I learned this from a tailor also, just insert the needle through some of the back side threads, pull it through, insert it again. No need to tie it off. And then maybe a third time. It makes for a nice, clean finish. Okay, so the only thing we have to do now is to cut the thread off. And on the outside of the garment, we have that beginning thread. This one right here. Now we can clip that off. Right flush with the surface. And so that buttonhole is done. 2 buttonholes.